I mentioned at the opening of the program an analogy between Trumpism and the ideology of the old Confederacy. Many people have analyzed Donald Trump through the lens of psychopathy. For example, we've had a number of psychiatrists. Justin Frank, the professor of psychiatry at George Washington University, has been on this program probably a dozen times talking about Trump as a psychopath. So we've looked at him through the lens of mental illness or mental health. We have certainly looked at Trump through the lens of politics over and over again. But what if we're all missing something? What if really the way that we should be examining Donald Trump, his career and his activities and his ongoing ambitions is through the lens of organized crime, of criminology? Gregg Barak is the North American editor of the Journal of White Collar and Corporate Crime. He's an emeritus professor of criminology and criminal justice at Eastern Michigan University. And he's got a new book out called Criminology on Trump. His website is Gregg, G-R-E-G-G, Barak, B-A-R-A-K.com. And also that's his Twitter handle, Gregg Barak. Gregg, welcome to the program. Establish the frame for this. Why do you think that the primary dimension of Donald Trump's life, career, and ambitions is rooted in crime rather than politics or psychopathy or just racial grievance or something else?
Well, actually, the way in which I'm approaching it as a criminologist, it's rooted in all of those things. It's not a question of that he's not a psychopath. It's rooted in what Frank has to say and what others have to say. But in looking at Trump through the scientific lenses of criminology, I've tried to give the 45th president his rightful place in the U.S. history of crime. In a sense, this is the first criminal biography of Donald Trump. And what people need to understand about Trump's lifetime of deviance is that it represents a smorgasbord of lawlessness. In other words, Trump's checks off the boxes of all legal categories. Trump breaks criminal laws, he breaks civil laws, he breaks administrative laws, he breaks international laws and constitutional laws. You name the type of law, and Trump breaks them. Over the course of 5 decades, Trump has been accused of sexual assault, tax evasion, money laundering, non-payment of employees, and defrauding of tenants, customers, contractors, investors, bankers, and charities. So finally, the way in which, to answer your question, I think, to make sense out of Donald and his lifetime of lawlessness is through the perspective of selective enforcement of the law and differential application of justice. From that framework, I've examined 3 generations of fraud and deception as exhibited by Trump, his family members, and close business and political associates. So it's inclusive of politics, of history, of sociology, of political economy, of government, of law. It's inclusive of the whole enchilada. Most other people are only just looking at a part of the picture.
I totally get it. You point out that he turned his presidency into a windfall for his business, that he used the law as a weapon, that his assault on government institutions that protect the public has been particularly egregious. You're calling for RICO prosecution. And one of the things I found most fascinating was your assertion that the Deutsche Bank and Donald Trump were engaged in an overlapping criminal scheme. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I think, many of your listeners and viewers are aware that since the early 90s, Donald Trump's repeated casino bankruptcies and other bankruptcies, some 20 in total, made him, out of bounds for most banks, for all banks. In fact, the only bank that Donald could lend him money was Deutsche Bank, historically and presently the world's most laundering bank in the history of banking, to my knowledge. So he hooked up with a launderer. He himself had already scored his first kleptocrat, if you will, his first money launderer in his tenant, Baby Doc Duvalier from Haiti. All of that stolen money ended up purchasing a property in Trump Tower. If you look at Trump's tower.
Wait a minute. So Donald Trump was laundering money for Baby Doc?
He was the first. He's the first kleptocrat that Donald scored,
right.
And that he sold a condo in his Trump Tower.
So that was when Trump went into the money laundering business, basically, and looking for kleptocrats to pass money to him.
That was the first time he did that. Now, let me say, if he acquired the money from Baby Doc through a shell company created outside the United States or within the United States, that in itself is not necessarily a crime. Although one would ask yourself why it isn't a crime, because we don't know who the owners are in 20% of his tenants. We don't know where the money from his purchasers of his financial properties, 20% of those, some 1,500 properties, have been purchased by shell companies. So we don't know where that money has been, and we don't know who that money belongs to. So, getting back to your question about Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank was willing to lend Donald money, and think about it. Over the years, Deutsche Bank sued Donald. Donald sued Deutsche Bank. They countersued. They negotiated. They continued to do business in spite of all of that until January 6th, when Deutsche Bank finally stepped away. Yeah. So I'm speculating here. Both are engaged in laundering. Both are, working in laundered money. They both have the goods on each other.
Now, I have heard speculation that the only condition under which Deutsche Bank was willing to loan $1 billion to Donald Trump, and it was signed off on apparently by the son of the Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy, his son Justin Kennedy, which leads to the question: did Donald blackmail Kennedy into stepping down so that he could put beer bong Biff into the Supreme Court? But that the only condition under which they were willing to loan that money to him was if it was backstopped by a Russian oligarch. Is there any evidence of that?
If there is, I have not seen that evidence. I mean, I'm aware of some speculative things. That's why I said to you, since they're both engaged in this, I'm not sure of the relationships. I'm not sure of, who was backing Donald's initial loans for them to be willing to do it. But this was also the period of time where Deutsche Bank was beginning to step up and to become a world-class bank. They didn't exist on Wall Street back when that was starting. Mm-hmm. This was part of the movement of them to maximize their profits, and they were collecting money and doing things all over the place. And Donald, was a customer. Yeah,
remarkable. We're talking with Gregg Barak. He's the author of a new book, Criminology, on Trump, and putting Trump in his rightful place in the history of crime. Gregg, we just have a minute or so left. What, in your mind, what is the most egregious example of Donald Trump's criminality?
Well, there's a lot of things that are, that compete for that answer in different categories. So I'd have to say the sedition against the United States.
Trying to overthrow the United States government.
Right. I think that's the most egregious, and I think that is what Garland will go after him and his co-conspirators. I did not think that previously, but I've reached that conclusion, and short of doing that, we're all in jeopardy. Yeah,
there you go. The new book, Criminology on Trump, the author Gregg Barak, Gregg, which is his Twitter handle and his website. Gregg, thanks a lot for dropping by. Good luck with the book.
Thank you very much, Tom.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Good talking with you. We'll be right back. It is, what is it, 16 minutes past the hour.